Hello, it's Big Cheds, and this is the Trading Encyclopedia Daily Education series on my YouTube at Cheds Trading. You can find me on Twitter at Big Cheds and Bitcoin Live, where I am a founding analyst. For today's lesson, we're going to talk about a reversal technique for a trend called Chuvasov's fork, and hopefully I'm pronouncing his name properly. I'll show you an image, but it's essentially a technique using diagonal trend lines to estimate when the trend is weakening and reversing. We see an image here. This is with bar charts with the open and close. I've done another video on bar charts, but you see the trend here marked the descending supply trend. It's starting to break, and a second trend line is drawn. Here's some more imagery from Goomba, who's someone I follow, does a great job on Twitter. But in the bullish reversal version, you see the downtrend, it's starting to break, and then you draw the second downtrend line, and it starts to break out of it. So it's a little bit intuitive, but let's talk about it. Now, as you know, I tend to not rely on diagonal trend lines. I tend to look at them to give me a heads up, perhaps, when a horizontal level might be recaptured. But this is certainly a technique you can use to perhaps get in a little bit early. So let's give you an example of how that might work. Now let's go back to the image right here. That's the AI overview. You can pause and read that. We'll see the image here, the downtrend line, and then the second downtrend line. Let's take the Bitcoin weekly chart. And we take the peak of the move here. Now, again, you don't necessarily need to get too fussed in exactly how to draw this. You can do body to body, but you generally just want to capture the majority of the trend. It doesn't necessarily need to be wick to wick. But we can see here there is a downtrend. And what's interesting about this is a little bit of the opposite of the bump and run. We know with the bump and run, you have a certain trend and then it will accelerate, right? And that's giving you a sense that the trend is ending. But this is kind of doing the opposite. To give you another way to look at it, we have the descending supply trend. We see it marking, and you're on watch. Say, okay, we're starting to break the trend here. Now, for a horizontal technique, you might just say, okay, I'll wait, for that to break. But with the C fork, or the Chuvasov's fork, you can draw that first trend line, and then you can draw the second trend line. Now, this is a variant of something called the Andrews pitchfork, which is a technique I'll do a separate video on. But in this sense, you draw the first descending supply trend break, and then you have the second descending supply trend, and you see it breaking. Now, with this technique, that's where you would take your long. You can estimate your measured move based on where you think that might go, taking the height of the high to the low. You can draw a fib retracement, 50%, 60, 67%, whatever you want. That's kind of not as important as the local price structure, but this trend line technique, the C fork, it's just giving you a general sense of when the trend is bending. You can almost intuitively really see it. You don't always need to draw the line, but this is just a way for you to mark it up and say, okay, I'm starting to see a C fork break here. Either take the break there, or you can just have a more simple two-level filter, which is what I employ. You could have just taken along right there in the break of that lower high, for example. But Chuvasov's fork is a way to mark out the trend, to give you some type of a heads up when the trend is bending. Okay, and as always, the more mature the trend preceding this, the more effective this technique will be. This is Chuvasov's fork, or the C fork pattern, and this is for the Trading Encyclopedia Daily Education playlist on my YouTube at Cheds Trading. You can find me on Twitter at Big Cheds and Bitcoin Live, where I'm a founding analyst. Folks, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Big Cheds out.